hate that aspect of the church at times.
Yeah.
That it can be judgmental in that way. I wish we could just emulate Christ more in that aspect.
What are the other areas that you find members are quick to judge against?
Facial hair. That's why I wear this.
You feel that?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yeah. All the time.
Interesting.
When I don't know have I ever told you about when I first grew my beard?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I had a friend that talked to me about it and was like, why can't LDS people grow beards? And like, we can grow beards. He's like, well, none of your leadership has beards. And like all your, like I've met your bishops and different stuff, like he was using terminology for the church. And he's like, and none of them have beards. And I was like, why don't we do facial hair in the church? Well, inquisitive mind, I just start digging, right? I find out that it goes back to like the early hippie movement. Oakes made a talk at BYU, avoid the appearance of evil. And he talked about being clean shaven versus like the scraggly hippies that were growing their hair out long and their beards and all that stuff. He uses an analogy of putting a water bottle in a brown paper bag, walking down the street and drinking from your water bottle in a brown paper bag. Like back in the day, a brown paper bag was on the alcohol when you purchased it, right? Yeah. So his analogy was like, if you look the part, you're judged the part. So don't look the part, which I think a lot of church culture, the rigidity of like how we look and how we dress and all those things stemmed out of that movement, trying to separate oneself from these, the hippie movement, drugs and sexual promiscuity and all that kind of stuff. Well, it just kind of grabbed a hold of the church and, made some serious problems, I think.
Yeah.
Because like I invite a lot of my friends to church and I have people that come to church with me fairly often. And like, I had a friend of mine, Zach, who I love deeply, showed up to church with me one week and sat down and said, man, I'm glad I didn't wear jeans. But he came in like, kind of like some khaki slacks and a polo. But like, what's the standard dress of an LDS
talk
person.
About judgment. I don't wear the standard drip.
Yeah.
And I know every week I stand out.
But you can feel that judgment?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you're not wearing a white shirt and a tie and a blue suit.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. If I were to paint like the picture perfect Mormon, it's clean shaven, part in your hair, a blue suit, a white shirt, maybe a red and blue striped tie, brown belt, brown shoes.
Nice shoes. Yep.
Yep. Like that's who we are. But to me, that screams the Pharisees.
Same.
Yeah. So I grew this for that reason.
Yeah.
I literally did all this research. I should show you. You'll get a kick out of this.
And you wear jeans to church too.
I do. I wear jeans to church.
Which I don't even do that. That's next level.
I'm next level.
I wear joggers. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Like this is my research on beards. You guys can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm scrolling through just pages and pages and pages of research. This is one of my favorite quotes of all time. This is by Hugh Nibley. The worst sinners, according to Jesus, are not the harlots and publicans, but the religious leaders with their insistence on proper dress and grooming, their careful observance of all the rules, their precious concern for status symbols, their strict legality, their pious patriotism. The haircut becomes the test of virtue in a world where Satan deceives and rules by appearances.
Can you send that to me?
Isn't that brilliant?
I am dropping that bomb this Sunday in Elders Quorum, guaranteed.
It's a brilliant quote.
Because I still like, dude, the weeks that I go to Elders Quorum, which is the second hour of our church service.
Yep.
Every other week.
Second and fourth.
Yeah. The second and fourth Sundays every week. I personally cannot stand being in Elders Quorum because of what you're talking about and the judgment that I face every time I walk in there.
Sure.
And what feels like insincere outreach to rescue me because I am not wearing the same clothes.
Sure.
And because I don't look the same.
Yeah.
And when I speak my truth. I speak the truth, I believe, not what everybody else wants me to say.
Sure.
Right. And so I think that's, the biggest cultural thing for me that I wish would change is the acceptance of all and the judgment piece.
Well, this is an interesting dynamic in the church. The church is definitely moving towards unity, but some people mistake unity for acceptance of sin, right?
Yeah.
So like, the LGBTQ topic or some of those other things where it's like, oh, the church is eventually going to accept these things. It's like, it's not. It's moving towards unity because it has to. This stagnant, judgmental culture of the past is not going to work in a global church. It just won't. You won't convert the world in that way. And so you can feel that. You can feel this softening, like Nelson saying things like, I can't remember in his last talk or the talk before, he said something about like harsh words being like hurting people. And like, there's part of me that's like, come on, microaggressions with words.
Yeah.
But there's also part of me that's like, you know what? We are in a culture where people are sensitive to that. And unless we can learn to be sensitive to that, we're going to come off as arrogant and judgmental and unkind. And so it's like, there's part of me that I've had to rethink this toughness mentality of like, if you can't handle somebody speaking words at you, okay, go sit in your safe space.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is really affecting people.
Yeah.
There are kids that are struggling mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually because of things that people are saying to them.
Yeah.
Bullying is a real problem. There are kids that are taking their lives. You start to realize like, okay, maybe my perspective on mental toughness is harsher than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And I need to create some space in myself for those that maybe are not as mentally tough.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In my I am statement, I say I'm an acceptor of people. My ability to judge does not exist. It's non-existent.
That's a great one.
A lot of this stems from my parents, specifically my mother, which ironically, very judgmental towards her children.
Yeah.
But anyone who's not her children, like the most accepting person ever, which stems from her mother.
Yeah.
Dixia Wells Longshore, who's just the sweetest woman ever and passed away when I was young. And she always tells the story about her mother where she went to visit her mother in a care home late in her mother's life, like within years of her passing. And she walks into her mother's room at this care home, and there's a guy standing in there, and he has a purple mohawk that's 12 inches tall, and he's tattooed from face all the way down to his body. And my mom walked in and had a visceral reaction, like, what is this guy doing to my mother? And she said, hi, I'm Jill. I'm her daughter. Like, who are you? And her mom just lit up and said, this is Jake so-and-so. He's the best. He comes and visits me. His mom is just 2 doors down, and he's just the kindest soul. And like, she just loved this guy that on the outside was so scary looking.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really been passed down in our family in a pretty meaningful way. And so I think the judgment in the church is something that I really wish could change.
Yeah. But there's part of me too that says, but there is a fine line, right? Like, how far can you go down that, what is appropriate to worship God wearing?
Yeah.
Right. Sandals and a bathing suit with a tank top. Like, I guess if that's what you want to do, but it's like, there's a level of respect, that I think some of it is important. Our demographic now does not care, right? Zuckerberg was one of the first, like, I'm just going to wear a hoodie. Yeah. It's like, that forget you type of clothing. Yeah. Where it's like, I got $1 billion come at me. I'm not wearing a suit and tie. Yeah. Like, I don't care. Yeah. Which is funny because he's kind of gone full circle now, and he like dresses up when he speaks in public and stuff. But, I think there is kind of a fine line there, and you just, got to be aware of that. But the Pharisaic culture, I won't have it.